morning, everybody, wherever you're watching us at. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We don't know when you're going to watch this show. Welcome to The Vantage Point. My name is Jessica Mosley, and I have to my right Crystal Dunn, Jennifer Rogers, and evangelist Takoya Porter. No titles needed, but I just wanted to drop that today. This topic that we're going to be discussing on today is something that's very near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about domestic violence abuse, how to recognize when you are in one. Also, when should you get out? When do you leave a battered relationship or a toxic relationship? I want to talk about that today. I'm going to table this in a different way because I don't want to start crying, because it's something that's, when I say very near and dear to my heart, so much so that I even started a nonprofit behind it, Deborah's Place, where we work with battered women and children and nonviolent offenders. However, as a former victim of domestic violence abuse, I don't even like to say a victim because I had an opportunity to leave and I stayed. And I went back and I stayed and I went back and I stayed and I went back. I was one of those people that went back several times. So there's no judgment here. No one's gonna be like, oh, you're stupid. Because I used to be one of them people that looked at the TV like, girl, you need to get out of that, until it was me, right? So I wanna talk to you ladies and know, what do you know about domestic violence abuse? Because sometimes it's not that people are not sensitive to it, they just don't really know about it because they've never been around it or experienced. So anybody can jump in on that before I get to talking about statistics.
I think I've witnessed it, you know, and I have seen the side effects of it. And I don't know what all we'll cover today, but I hope we get to talk about when, especially if you, the mom, when you're able to get out of that scenario or the scenario stops, to remember that it affected more than just you, particularly if you have children. And, you know, and I hope we can talk about reaching back to make sure that they're okay, because they survived too. Yeah.
Amen. I remember coming up, and one of my friends' dad was a stone alcoholic, and his mother, and he used to always, he went to work. Her mom was a stay-at-home mom. He would go to work, come home, and he would beat her. And then one day, she came to school and said, my mom pulled a gun on my daddy. And we just like, oh my God, the police. You know, we're little kids, we don't really understand what abuse is. But she pulled a gun on him because he had been beating on her. She finally got tired of the abuse. Well, like you said, what effect did it have on the children? Because her brother went on to beat and murder another woman. So, yes, make sure your kids survive, that your kids are okay as well. Anybody else want to chime in before I get in?
I think I have not had a lot of exposure to domestic abuse until I met you. And then my husband and what he's shared in his testimony of his childhood. But being involved with Deborah's Place and it, you know, I am sensitive and compassionate because I do know marriage, I do know relationships, and I understand that, you know, me looking out could think one thing, but when you're in it, you think something different. And when I think about all the things I put up with, I stayed with, you know, you have to be sensitive to that. And then so many women are going through that. So many teenagers are going through that. And I think one thing that smacked me in the face was dealing with a bunch of young people and having them write down, if you really knew me, statements, and how many of them wrote about my boyfriend hits me. You know, that just broke my heart, because I'm thinking, where did you learn that this was okay? You know, it's not okay. So that's just been my experience with that.
Well, and I guess that segues more into my experience with that, because my husband has never done anything like that. But I was in a relationship for a while that was extremely emotionally abusive, and I mean, closest he came to putting his hands on me, he was like pushing me in the wall. But
where is he at?
I'm never going to answer that question. But I was in the kind of relationship where I think about when you're dating, even as a younger person, you know, things. I remember the only reason I knew it was wrong, but I finally started researching it a little bit, and there was this checklist, and it had 36 ways to know you're in an abusive relationship, and I marked off 33 of them.
Wow.
And that kind of clicked for me that day.
Wow.
Statistics tells us that 1 out of every 4 women have experienced domestic violence abuse. There's 4 women on here. One of us has experienced that. Well, 2 of us have experienced.
I don't want to equate mine to yours because that sounds like such a, it's not even the same level.
Abuse is abuse.
But it was not okay.
It's not okay. Because because to me, emotional is almost is probably worse than physical. I can recover from a physical wound, but the emotional and psychological damage is lasting because I still have to fight through. Because when you go through domestic violence abuse, when you go through training, as they call it, they teach you all the signs, the symptoms, how to know that you're in it. And we're going to talk a little bit about those today. But I have to really fight that because every time somebody may do something, that doesn't mean that they're abusing me, right? So there's so much what is it? 16 years later, and I'm still 17 years later, and I still have to fight through different things, whether it's with a man or a woman, because, you know, Jenny and me, I might say, hey, you know, but anyway, in all seriousness, 1 out of every 4 women are abused. 20,000 phone calls are made per day to a domestic violence hotline. You know, a lot of, Jenny alluded to, she made mention of when you're being a teenager. So when I look back on it, I saw that I can now say, my mom was in a DV relationship. I swore I would never do that. Then I ended up picking the same type of man and worse. Mine started off as, you know, because a lot of women, I'll talk for myself, we want to think that we got the man, right? Or we'll be like, oh girl, he be calling me all the time. He want me to call him and let him know when I get to where I'm at. I got him wrapped around my finger. No, you're being trained to tell this man your every footstep. He's counting your footsteps because we're going to define what healthy is and what unhealthy is in a relationship. Because I think a lot of times girlfriends, they give wife benefits to boyfriends, something that they have not earned, or you may think that, okay, this is the way our relationship is, but this is the way that he's controlling you. And so I didn't see it that way because while I was in it, I thought that he loved me. I thought that, oh, you wanting to control my money, or you wanting to know who I'm with, who all over at your mama house, every single detail of my life, or you keeping me away from my mama, or keeping me away from family and friends who will be able to detect your crap. Okay, and I'm being nice today when I say it. This is a very sensitive subject, but a lot of women are dealing with it. So let's talk about some of the signs that you are in a domestic violence abuse, well, in a DV or abusive relationship. They're very jealous of you. Has anybody ever been in a relationship where the man was jealous of you, or they were jealous over you?
Oh, yeah.
Severely.
No, severely. Like where they accuse you of everybody who walks by. Oh, you want them? Oh, you looking at them? Oh, you don't think they don't want you? You'll never, all that.
Let me control you. Don't wear your hair like this. Don't dress like this. You know, now let me tell you something. Well, you know, Mary, if your husband say, hey, I don't want you to wear that dress. Oh, well, that's another discussion. Maybe he sees something, whatever the case may be. But my point is, don't dress. You're taking away my identity of who I am. I was always a confident person, but then I got to the place where I don't want to go get my hair done or get it done like this because he said it draw too much attention to me. But I like my hair in curls. Why can't I wear my hair in curls? Or why are you friends with her? I've been friends with her for 15 years. Now all of a sudden I can't hang with my best friend because she has, she's single and you're not, but I'm not married to you. I was still technically single, but I let you control I didn't little by little. You were controlling me, and I didn't know it. So some people say, well, you just a strong-minded person. No, I just know, look, I've been through control issues, and I don't want to go through it anymore. Another thing is never taking ownership for what they've done. So I can sit here, belittle Takoya, belittle Jennifer, belittle Crystal. I'm talking a lot, but this is a very passionate subject for me. So I can belittle you, but then you tell me, Jessica, you hurt my feelings when you were talking to me like that, telling me that I'm ugly, that I would never amount to anything. But then I'm like, well, you made me say that. I never take ownership for of my behavior, how I conducted myself. Does anybody want to jump in?
I think you're doing a great job. Because I think if we talk about full circle moments,
Yes.
I think that you're able, based off of your experiences, I may have some experiences with it, but not everything is my story to tell.
Right.
You know, and being mindful of who my stories affect.
Yep.
But I think you're able, one, because you've been through it.
Yes.
And then the flip side of that is now you're also helping others who've been through it. So I think you're doing a great job. I don't know that anybody else could tell this the way that you are. I would just, you know, I'd want to ask you questions.
Yes.
Because you're sharing signs and details to know when to know that you're potentially in a that type of domestic violent relationship, you know. And I think people can be very judgmental and say, well, why are you taking that? Why did she take that? And so I would ask you to speak to that, you know.
Thank you. So I didn't grow up with my dad, my biological dad. I had a stepfather who was emotionally abusive to my mother. Like, it's raining here today in Indianapolis, and I remember him putting us out when I was 9 years old, and weather like this in the middle of the night. And I remember I was just like, and I was like, he put us out in the middle of the night, but my mom went back. I hated my mother. Because why are we going back? Why are we going back to this? But I, having gone through it, he tore her self-esteem down. He made her believe that she couldn't do it without him, right? And then as much as I hated her, now I understand, having gone through it, not justifying it,
Right.
okay? But I understand why she made the decisions that she made. When we come back, I want to talk to you about ways to get out, I want to talk a little bit more about the signs of domestic abuse, because this is Domestic Violence Abuse Month, and we want to bring it to you because it's not just happening in the world, it's happening in the church as well. You are tuned into The Vantage Point, and we'll be right back.
Did you know that when you are quiet, your voice is missing to God's ears? I know some of us have prayed and we're wondering, how long should I pray about this? Why should I pray if God already knows? How will I know God is answering? And what do I do when I feel like God's not listening? But God is listening for your voice. It's too quiet in this world for the troubles we have. You have to raise your voice, and God wants to hear from you. It's Too Quiet, a book about prayer, is designed to answer your prayer questions and build your faith. Visit presstopray.com.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes, and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you, and we'll figure it out."
Welcome back to The Vantage Point. My name is Jessica, and we are talking about domestic violence abuse. And this is a very sensitive subject. And you know what? It just never gets old for me because I've been there, walked through it, and it taught me not to judge people, right? So I want to talk about the invisible fence in your mind, why you stay. Because as many times as I left and came back, I didn't think, I would leave to try to prove a point to him, but in the back of my mind, I didn't think I could make it without him. Or I didn't think that it was the invisible, I call it the invisible fence in my mind. But once I made a decision to leave, because I came to Indianapolis with the clothes on my back, and lived at a battered women's shelter with my then 7-year-old son, and I was 7 months pregnant. And when I look back on that, it was like I was more, but here's the thing. You will not leave until the pain of staying becomes worse than the pain of leaving. Because I remember going to the police station, and because my uncle was murdered, and I knew the devastation that it caused my family. And because he died when I was 6 years old, he was murdered when I was 6 years old. And they never solved the murder. So my thing was, when I got in this relationship, I was gonna not press charges, but I would make a police report because at least my mother, you see my thinking? At least my mother wouldn't have to go through the same thing of not knowing where the killer was, because in my mind, I knew he was gonna kill me. Staying there, I knew. I remember my cousin calling me, she said, Jessica, I don't wanna come see you at Guy and Allen Funeral Home. That was the most popular funeral home back in my hometown then. And I was like, girl, ain't nobody gonna kill me. But guess what? My abuser went on to murder and kill another woman, and is now serving life in prison for this crime, for this murder. And her name was Jennifer. And I always think to myself, well, especially when it happened, what if I would have pressed charges? What if I would have did something about this? Maybe she would still be alive. So that's where Deborah's Place was born on the inside of me, because I do it for Jennifers. I do it for every Jennifer, every Jessica, every Michelle, whatever your name is, because I know that there is a way of escape. So I want to talk, it was one of the questions that you asked. Can you ask it again? Because my mind is...
So I was just essentially saying, from the outside looking in, if you've never been in that predicament, if you've never been in that type of relationship, it's easy to say, oh, I wouldn't, or I would never. So my question to you was, how do you respond to a person when they say, well, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave sooner? Why didn't you just walk away?
Because I didn't think I could. It's the invisible, I call it, in one of my books, I call it the invisible fence in my mind. I didn't think that I could do better because they beat your self-esteem down so bad. And I was cute, I was real cute, and I knew I was cute. But by the time he got through with me, I was ugly. He could tell me that it was raining, the sun would be shining, and I would fan the rain. It was no rain in sight, but if whatever he told me, I believed him. Because I made him my God. I made him my idol.
I think you probably loved him at first, though. It didn't always start like that, did it?
Oh, no, it didn't.
It doesn't, I like I said, I'm not
It really was there.
But it doesn't just start like that.
Of course, it's subtle. Like, that's what I was saying. Oh, girl, I got him. He be wanting me to call in. He's teaching me he's controlling me little by little by little. Your mom and them don't understand you. I'm the only person that understands you. I'm the only one that really gets Jessica.
So I think that you were talking about the signs earlier, and that's one of those signs is when you get isolated. When now all of a sudden, don't listen to your mama, don't listen to your family,
They jealous of us.
That they don't want you to be happy, your mama's miserable, that kind of stuff. Those are signs, because I think, like you said, it was a conditioning. It was started somewhere. It never starts at you smacking me in the mouth.
Exactly.
To me, it starts with you disrespecting me and calling me out my name. I personally think that...
Mine did start with a smack in the mouth, though.
Yeah, that's wild.
And I smacked him back.
Yeah, well, there
and we
you go.
laughed it off.
But I think when you're talking about teenagers and you're talking about, because it starts young, that conditioning your mind starts so young, right?
Not all the time, Jenny.
But what I'm talking about today, in today's generation, when I look at what these girls are putting up with today and the way that they allow these men to talk to them, to debase them, it just baffles
Openly
me.
have mistresses.
You know,
Jesus.
sharing, and you sharing. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it just, this generation isn't built like you were, so they're not surviving this like you did. These girls are getting murdered. These girls are getting, you know what I'm saying? And all because of what? You know, and the way you say they break you down and break down your self-esteem and now make you, that stuff starts so young, but it started with my daddy not being there. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It started with, nobody telling me I was worth something. Because before you to even get to that place where, I didn't have all of that either, but I was super crazy. So let's do it.
But let me tell you something. I was a fighter. Mm-hmm. I was a fighter. I would fight. I don't know why. To answer your question, because I could say, oh, my daddy wasn't there. Oh, this, oh, that. But I didn't. I can say all those external things. Mm-hmm. But the inside of me, there was something broken in Jessica I'm like, dang, I wish he would have met this Jessica. I wish he would have met this Jessica. But it's like when I think of that, that's why I'm very, I try to really work on not yelling at my children. Or sometimes we be like, go sit down. I told you to stop that. Because I don't want them to think that's okay. Mm-hmm. For somebody to talk to you crazy, to look at you crazy, to control you. Because it was something that my son did. I said, I was just asking her a question. I said, it sounds like you trying to count footsteps to me. That's I'm really working on that. Mm-hmm. Because I'm just like, you don't want that to become a pattern. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to try to...
It was my alarm and my phone is out.
I wanted to lighten the mood, if possible, right now, the mood. So I know that you've had some horrible experiences.
I do.
Right?
I did, yeah.
But tell me how you've used that in a positive light.
Thank you.
How did you respond? I know it was negative, but how did you make it positive, if that makes sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
I want to talk about Deborah's place. Thank you for changing the mood, because it's just like one of those situations that I'll fight you over somebody getting beat up. And Jenny was right. There are a lot of women, because remember, and I'm going to answer that question, you know how when a woman got murdered back in the day, it made the national news. Mm-hmm. Now it's just another thing. Yeah. Such and such got murdered, because our news cycle is ever changing. But creating Deborah's Place is so personal for me, because now I get to go back and help a Jessica, a Crystal, a Takoya, a Jennifer says she ain't nobody jumping on her, but I got to go back and help these type of women. No, seriously, and help them with their self-esteem, because that's really the issue. How you see yourself.
Tell us what you're doing. We know Deborah's Place.
So we know Deborah's Place. Shout out to Kids Glove, who sponsors us to be in the warehouse. But we're able to give out goods to those who are in need. Also help them financially with their rent, utilities, refer them to different counseling services. That's another topic, but I do think that you need to go through counseling. And I thank God for the Julian Center, for my therapist that I went through, because I didn't know the signs. Because sometimes we don't know what's not okay. Maybe we saw our aunties them go through it. I saw my auntie jump on my uncle, at the store. It was just fighting. So, I had to put him in check. You don't fight your husband. It's not okay for a woman to hit a man either.
Mm-hmm. True.
So, but reaching back and giving, we're gearing up for something really big here in the city We'll talk about that on another show. But I'm really, really excited to be able to help a woman. Just like when a woman comes in and a woman came to a warehouse and needed some things, and she was so appreciative over a pack of Pampers because she couldn't afford it, because her husband don't give her no money or her baby daddy don't give her no money. That's the way we help. That's the way we give back. Because like, this is you today.
You know, and I think what'll be exciting is when Deborah's Place goes into its transitional home and shelter. You know, when you had mentioned Deborah's Place years and years ago.
It was Esther's Place then.
Yeah.
But
you had said, you were telling me about it, and I said to you, Jess, whenever you get started, I really want to help you. And going on record that I said I wanted to help her, even though she drives me insane.
I do not.
I want to help her because the helplessness that you have to feel to stay in that, to have an outlet or have another option, that just touches my heart. And you know, I'm so grateful. You've taught me so much about that kind of thing, and having compassion on people where they are. And not requiring them to be anybody else than what they are, but having compassion on where they are, because it's never about what it's about. There's always something deeper that's driving people to make the decisions that they make. And having Deborah's Place, the transitional house, whenever we get there,
it's gonna be 2022.
You know, I can't wait to see the programs and everything that you will have to, again, set somebody up to be the next Jessica, Dr. Jessica Mosley, media mogul, you know.
Let me just say this. So I want it on record, because hopefully Jenny, I think all this is happening with Jenny because she's supposed to be doing what I asked.
Losing my job?
So she can come over. It's all a player, girl. No, but I do want to say this because I know that we have less than a minute. We tried to lighten up the mood a little bit. But if you are in a domestic violence, abusive relationship, you can come out of that. And I'm not gonna tell you to divorce your husband or to leave your man or your woman, you know, but you need to know that no abuse is okay. No abuse is okay. Physical, mental, financial, spiritual, I don't care where you at, it is not okay. We thank God for bringing us out. I thank God that I took my way of escape because I know that would have been me. I do dedicate this show to Jennifer, and I pray that something was said or done today that will cause you to look at God, to look to God to be your everything. Thank you for tuning into the Vantage Point today.